7:32. I'd like to welcome you all to the annual Town of Woodbridge budget meeting, preliminary budget meeting, at which time residents can let the Board of Finance and members of the Board of Selectmen also know their feeling about the budget that's being presented. And there are no votes taken tonight, of course. We're just here to listen to your comments and concerns, if any. And before we get started with a line-by-line review of the budget, our first selectman, Beth Heller, has a few remarks, and then Tony Genovese would like to present the financial information that he deems pertinent. Beth?
Good evening. Thanks, Deb. Now it's 21. Hold on one second. It's a well-oiled machine. Good evening, everyone. My name is Beth Heller, and I'd like to welcome you to our meeting. We're going to get started. We're going to turn off the lights so that the screen is more readable. It is a small screen, so if you have trouble seeing it, we have a limited number of printouts of the actual stuff that's on the screen tonight. And Karen Crosby has them for now, but if anyone would like one, we have a limited number. And now we can turn off the lights. We'll put them back on when we get to the question and answer period. As residents of Woodbridge, we are privileged to live in a charming and bucolic town, surrounded by natural beauty. I am honored and humbled to have served as your first selectman for the past 10 months. My administration is focused on investment and planning to preserve and enhance our quality of life, consistent with our shared values. Here in Woodbridge, we take pride in our first responders, our schools, our library, our green open spaces, and our role as a leader in preserving the environment, while maintaining our recognized highest standards for planning and fiscal responsibility. My administration is committed to continue, number one, expand energy efficiency and other sustainability efforts. For example, we have the new solar panels on our library roof. Number two, invest in our schools and library. These assets to our community are among the best in Connecticut. Protect our town with first-class public safety service. Our police, firefighters, and EMS crew are always working hard on behalf of our residents. A major goal I would like to achieve in my time as your first selectman is to make progress on some of the important projects the town must tackle. As you know, we put out a public opinion survey to ask residents to share their thoughts regarding the future of the former country club property. There will be a follow-up meeting on Wednesday evening, April 25th, for further discussion. Please join us. We have moved the meeting to this building in the senior cafeteria to accommodate the public. As I came into office, work on the microgrid was wrapping up, and I'm pleased that we have finally scheduled a ribbon-cutting ceremony for May 7th. We will now be assured that the town buildings on the center campus will have uninterrupted power during storms. This will ensure our emergency response efforts remain excellent, no matter the weather. The need to upgrade our emergency radio communication system had been studied for many years. In December 2017, we moved ahead to secure funding, and I am pleased to report that we are set to have this new equipment installed by the end of this calendar year. We're also making progress on a plan for the old firehouse that enhances the value of this historic asset. And we're getting ready to renovate the animal shelter, which badly needs improvements to ensure the continuation of our animal welfare services. Given the current realities in Hartford and Washington, we must continue to identify new and creative approaches to managing our resources, such as eliminating redundancy and restructuring our town workforce. We will further explore sharing services with neighboring towns and school districts and expanding our use of green energy to lower costs. While contracting with the Connecticut Economic Resource Center to conduct a fiscal health analysis of our town, which will be completed this summer, we will also move forward on plans to increase our focus on supporting and promoting our business district and the many commercial endeavors that contribute to our tax base. By reaching out to surrounding municipalities, we have begun to explore the expansion of regional animal control services at our shelter, as well as potential fund contributions to our renovation project there. And in partnering with the Amity School District, we have begun a shared service agreement to save significant money on IT services. I am committed to town government that is open, inclusive, and transparent, one that promotes discussion and healthy debate that values clarity, civility, and mutual respect. Examples of this approach are the collaborations and community support we have received. Number one, from membership numbers of the rec department of our outdoor pool, to connections with community groups such as Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, to our recent Farmers Forum co-sponsored with a community-led agriculture group, to our Rid Litter Day event in celebration of Earth Day just yesterday. Our town government is partnering with community members, making Woodbridge an even nicer place to call home. As a citizen of our town, you have the opportunity to share in its future. I am optimistic and committed to listening to each of you and ensuring that every voice is heard as we work together. Now, before I hand off the presentation to Tony Genovese, the Director of Finance and Administration at Town Hall, I just want to note some awards and distinctions our town has earned under Tony's leadership. These are significant accomplishments, and they demonstrate our town's commitment to financial excellency. Thank you, Tony. Good job. Thank you very much, and now I'll turn it over to Tony.
Thank you, Ben. I want to just highlight some important parts of the budget for your consideration as we go through this budget process. The first are some of our budget priorities that are identified early on in the process and that are used to guide the budget process as we move through. One is to control taxes and to find grant opportunities and other opportunities to offset our taxes and to identify wants versus needs and to try to best develop that as we move forward. Second would be efficiency. We've done a number of efficiencies with staffing and with energy efficiency, including streetlight conversion to LED lights and other LED conversions throughout town, as well as some cooperative purchasing. Three is providing services. As Ben indicated earlier, there are a number of examples where shared services are being explored, including information technology and animal control, as well as finance and other opportunities with our boards of education. And finally, fiscal stewardship, and that's a very important part of this process, and that includes our AAA rating, which is indicative of our manageable debt levels, strong tax collection rate, and our other post-employment benefits funding, which are very strong. So basically the way the budget process works is the departments put together budget requests. The budget requests are reviewed by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen then recommends a budget to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance then recommends a preliminary budget to the town. And the preliminary hearing is where we are this evening. So basically September through December is when the departments put together their budget requests and meet with staff. We meet with the departments to review their budgets, make suggestions and recommendations. And then December through January, the boards of selectmen and finance meet several times to review and ask questions about the budgets. So when they deliberate, which takes place in February and March, they can then make recommendations to the town. There are a number of issues that came up this year that are worth highlighting. First is the state revenue reductions, and we've seen several of our grants reduced or eliminated in next year's budget, including the ECS grant, which was reduced. and the elimination of the elderly circuit breaker reimbursement, the PQOC grant, and the motor vehicle and revenue sharing grant. All three of those were eliminated. So that totals about $400,000. That was probably one of our bigger issues this year that we had to deal with. The elderly circuit breaker program is still in place. It's just we will no longer receive reimbursement for the tax benefits that it provides. One highlight this year is debt service, which is down about 10% as we continue to pay off prior projects. And so that's some good news I wanted to mention. Another issue that we're faced with is our grand list and the lack of growth in our grand list. If you look at the history of it over the past, say, 10 years, it has not been above 1% or even 0.5%, really, except for 1 year. So we've had slow growth in our grand list over the past decade. So that's something that continues to be a problem here at Woodbridge. And finally, this year, we had some pay-as-you-go funding. Basically, pay-as-you-go is funding for capital projects that we pay on a year-to-year basis instead of borrowing money for it. One example is road paving. Because we pave every year, it's pertinent and prudent for us to put it every year in our budget as opposed to borrowing for it. So this year, the road paving was increased about $300,000 because the boards of selectmen and finance felt that it was, we had to invest additional money in that infrastructure. So that's another highlight I wanted to bring to your attention. Basically, most of our revenue comes from property taxes. As you can see, we have a heavy reliance on our property taxes, most of which is residential. So that further increases the relevance of the grand list, or lack of growth in our grand list. And as you can see, it's the majority of our revenue. We do have a intergovernmental revenue, which is now less than 2%, and continues to shrink, as well as our investment income, while increasing, is a very small part of our revenue stream. Here's some more detail for you. You can see the intergovernmental revenue is down 30%. That's we spoke of earlier. Investment income, which is up $110,000, is a bright spot here. And then some of the others are relatively flat. You'll notice the operating transfers, that's mostly revenues from private duty from the police department, and that's down about 18%, 17-18%. Expenditures are roughly 30% for the Woodbridge Board of Education, 30% for our contribution to the Amity District, and 40% for everything else in town. So here's some of the expenditure groups that we like to present to show sort of where some of the increases or decreases are. You'll see the 10% decrease in debt service there. Next to the increase in capital expenditures, mainly for that road paving and some other vehicle purchases that were necessary. There have been a lot of questions about the mill rate and why we had a large increase in our auto mill rate and a small increase in our property in mill rate. So I wanted to sort of present this graphic to illustrate what has happened over the past 4 years. In 2016, the town issued a mill rate of 37.66, which was for all of our motor vehicle, real estate, personal property. As we went through the budget process, and it's down here so I can't quite see it, it's probably, the state capped the auto mill rate at 37. So what that did was increased the residential, the real estate and personal property mill rate to 38.54 to make up for the cap or the loss of revenue in the motor vehicle. It was a statewide cap. And so as a result, you'll see that the real estate mill rate has increased more than it normally would have been. There was supposed to be revenue to offset that, but that never happened. So we had another increase there. In 2018, the cap was further reduced to 32, which caused an even larger increase in real estate and personal property. Again, to make up for the fact that the mill rate normally in that year would have been about 39 and a little over 39. But because of the drop in the mill rate for motor vehicle, you'll see that we had a larger increase in real estate that year. Well, the cap has now been increased to 45, so we are no longer above the cap, and so now all of the mill rates are equalized back at 39.83. So you'll see the resulting jump from 32 is what caused the large increase in autos. Effectively, however, the mill rate combined is about 2.5% increase. So if you add both increases and calculate the increase, it's about 2.5%. So we have two types of capital expenditures. First is pay-as-you-go. As I indicated, those are items that either have a short lifespan that you wouldn't necessarily borrow for, such as a vehicle, and or items that you pay for or that you do on a relatively frequent basis. So it doesn't make sense to borrow for a period of 20 years, because if it's a repetitive item, then you're just paying interest after you get through that time period. So we pay as you go for a lot of items. That includes road paving and vehicles and building improvements. We also borrow or consider for future borrowing. There are two items in our current capital plan, which is remediation at the country club and a new police station. And those are the items that are for consideration for future bonding at some future date. There's nothing that's been established or approved, but rather it's a snapshot of where we are financially so that you can see if we have any large projects on the horizon. This is a look at our long-term debt. The 10% of expenditures is sort of a benchmark that's used throughout the financial industry to indicate where where you shouldn't necessarily go above. You can see our share of the AMD debt has decreases dramatically in about 5 years or so, and that's the top portion there, as does our existing town debt. After we pay off there was some open space purchases in 2000 that are paid off, as well as the firehouse and the library. So as those begin to get paid off, you'll see that our debt burden is less. And there's some coming dates for you to remember. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Beth and Tony. Okay, again, the purpose of this meeting tonight is to hear the concerns, comments of the taxpayers of Woodbridge about the budget that we're going to present. I'm going to go through the budget line by line, and I'm going through, in the big book, page 45, which lists all the various departments. You have this little gray thing, and it's the second page in. And both of them, you'll notice that it comes down to a 2.38% increase in spending. So I'll go through the various boards and commissions. If you'd like to speak, kindly come to the microphone, identify yourself in where you live. Before we get started, I'd just like to say, as we go through all these various departments, I'm sure someone either sitting in this room tonight or someone watching on television at some point in time has had to use the services of our various departments. Woodbridge is blessed with so many talented employees who staff these departments and do whatever they can to satisfy the needs of our taxpayers. Certainly in the just concluded, I hope concluded winter, the storms, the power lines down, a horrific fire we had this year, flooding, whatever, trees down. Our departments did an absolutely marvelous job of keeping us functioning in this town, and I think as residents we owe them a debt of gratitude for the great work they do. So with that, again, I'm going to go down these budgets one by one. We have various members of the departments here tonight if they can answer questions or if we can answer questions. And if you go into this budget, of course, this book, there's line item by line item. If you have a particular question about a line item, we can answer that, or a particular question about an entire department. So with that, I will begin with the first line, which is the Board of Selectmen. And the Board of Finance approved amount is $674,697. Yes.
Amy Borella, 184 Ribbon Road. I noticed that there's a 50% increase in administrative salaries. Could that be explained, please?
Thank you, Amy. When I came into office, I decided to do some staff restructuring, and I have a couple of employees that perhaps are, for one reason or another, just taking different hours and things like that, and I hired Sheila to do grant writing, which I thought was necessary. We've never had grant writing before in the town, and I've told all the departments in the town that Sheila is available to do that, and we've also tried to increase communications. We put a good push out to talk to residents, get more information out to residents, so that's why I did it.
Could you just explain, was that position posted was it, or what was the process? Well, ordinarily town employees are posted and publicly advertised.
Right, it was not posted. It was we went to the personnel committee. I went to the personnel committee. I'm sorry, I don't know the process. It was approved by the personnel committee and went to the board of selectmen, and I asked for that position.
So is that a union position or
No.
is it an at-will?
No, it's an at-will position. Yeah.
Okay, next is the probate court. That is a state mandated expenditure. Jerry, where's our probate court? Derby? Derby. We used to have our own probate court, but then they merged a bunch of them together, so ours is in Derby. Okay, next is the town clerk, $224,398. The registrar of voters, $65,060. And if something comes up after we've passed one, we can go back. So, government access television, $25,717. General administration, which is primarily our insurance, that's the biggest item in there. Town insurance, $247,900. Information systems, which is probably self-explanatory, but it's all the work on our computers and throughout the town. It's $122,515. The finance department, which is Tony's department, $292,932. Tax collector, $147,831. Tax assessor, $168,856. Board of Assessment Appeals, $1,500. Board of Finance, which is our board, $231,224. The biggest part of that, of course, is the contingency fund, which is used for any emergencies in town that we couldn't plan on, and whatever money we don't use is returned to the town. Yes?
Amy Morel again. A question about contingency. How are we doing this year in light of this year and the storms, et cetera?
Yeah, it's challenging. Aside from the storms, the homicide, I find it hard to say that word sometimes, but there's a lot of overtime being spent investigating the recent homicide, because I guess when the state police are here doing their work, we have to have members of the police department there assisting them, so we're expending a lot of money on overtime for that homicide investigation. So we do have the money, but the storms definitely took a toll on us. Town plan and zoning, $49,885. Zoning Board of Appeals, $5,300. The center, which is of course the building we're in, and all the surrounding parts of this building, it's all that has to do with the center, $84,500.
Right, Amy Morel again. I had understood there was going to be an ADA compatible ramp put in. Is that in the center budget or is it somewhere else? And how much is it going to cost? I had understood that, I had been told that the secret garden was going to have to be removed.
So that's actually a grant that we're using, so it's not part of the budget. And we'll probably go out to bid week maybe. So the budget for it is, total budget for the project is maybe, includes a ramp and a bathroom. Is that the project you're talking about?
Yeah, is it a state grant? Or
It's a state grant, yeah.
Small cities.
Small cities, it's the program grant.
Okay. And it's 100% grant? It's
That's
not to
correct.
be matched anywhere?
No, it's 100% grant.
The former fire station, which is, again, is under review, and at some point we're going to have a proposal for that, I understand it. The budget to keep it going, which is utilities and minor items, $7,800. The Country Club of Woodbridge, $70,500. A large part of this is to operate the pool, the utilities, et cetera. A lot of this money really should be charged off to the pool, as I've said numerous times. So, but $70,500 for the Country Club. Amy.
I was speaking to a former employee of the town just this weekend who expressed concern about the state of the roof for the actual country club building. I was wondering what is the status of that and whether or not leaks have been stopped or where we are in the envelope of that building.
Anybody? I don't know that we've done anything to that building, but yeah.
I can tell you that the roof is not in great shape, except for the roof over the kitchen, which was replaced maybe 6 or 8 years ago. The rest of the roof is not in great shape. There are some leaks, some have been stopped, but there are some that remain. And we do what we can to, but no large scale work has been done.
So is the building deteriorating or are the leaks now, enough that you can catch them in the bucket or where are we?
You have to, I'm not 100% sure at this point.
So the rumor is that it's deteriorating because the roof has not been addressed, so that's why I asked the question. Or rumor, what I was told by a former.
Yeah, we can get more information on that, but I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Same subject. Bob Billy, Cornhill Road, 68. What is the current insurance on the country club building now, and what would it be if we closed and it was a vacant building?
The country club is part of our general insurance package, so that's part of the budget. That's about $180,000 roughly. And that includes all of our property, liability, auto, professional liability. It's one big package. If we were to close the building, it would be a vacant property policy, which I think we had priced at about $18,000.
Okay, more than what we're paying right now.
Most likely, yeah.
Okay, all right. we probably should look into Amy's, the OC from, something she started to think and feel, I'd like to know and understand.
Did I read on police department? No. Police department, $3,026,146. Fire department, $776,153. Medical services, again, this is contractual with AMR, $303,831. Animal control, $107,070. And again, for those of you who aren't familiar, we have several towns that share this service. This is our portion of the operating budget of the animal control department. The building department, $161,958. Public Works, $1,404,331.
Thank you, Commissioner, and echoing what I've already heard about the building department and public works. I mean, the work that they did this year and all the time, keeping the roads clear and safe, and the work, I know the guys up at the transfer station do, just the money we're spending here is well spent. Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Thank you.
Waste management, again, this is the transfer station, primarily it's the fees we pay for the trash, et cetera, and operating the transfer station. $500,353. Remediation, very wonderful, $0. Building maintenance, again, this is the budget that is used for maintenance for most of the town buildings. $440,091. Human services, $475,312. Recreation, $584,244.
Amy Morelli again. So I don't know whether you want to have a question about recreation capital projects at this point or later on.
Yeah, I would say when we do last time, capital non-recurring.
Okay. And then I also don't know about, and I asked a question where I don't know where it should be, but it should be somewhere. And I would have thought it would be non-capital because it's a recurring expense. I came before the board of selectmen in the fall and noted that the Fitzgerald track walking trails were deteriorating. There's no stone dust, there's mud in various places, and in some places subsurface seems to be reappearing. I don't see anything about that in the budget anywhere. And I also had talked to Tony Genovese and to Adam Parsons about this a couple of years ago. So I was just wondering where we are, whether or not they're going to continue to deteriorate, should this be capital, should it be part of the regular budget, just what's going
I believe
on.
we do have some funds that were put in a budget from, I believe it was the prior year. And so we just have to meet with Adam to see what his plans are for it and what his approach is.
So
I
the
believe
idea
we have some funds remaining.
So the idea is to use past years to try and address it? The
Correct.
latest,
Yeah.
we continue to get heavy rains that create problems as well as just no stone dust left in some places.
Right, we have a prior capital appropriation for that purpose, which I believe there's still some funds remaining. So we can talk about that if you want to call
Okay.
at some
I
point.
want to make sure it's going to get addressed this year. Thank you.
I think considering all the use that the trails get, we definitely need to address that. figure out how we're going to get it to where it should be.
Something helpful in terms of the stone dust. First of all, anytime there's a washout, I walk the trail. Adam is pretty quick to go over there and patch any areas that are safety. I am familiar with some of the areas that he's referring to that are they're flat, they're not, there's no stone dust. We have a large pile of stone dust sitting in the parking lot at the country club across the street. So I think we have probably plenty of inventory over there that probably could be relocated and used for that purpose. Save some
I
money.
think we should all make a mental note of that. Obviously, it's a popular area, so we'll take a look at it. Every time I get to recreation, I'm reminded to make this remark that in addition to the expenditures we see, there are revenue items. For example, recreation has a great deal of revenue. Just about every department has some kind of revenue. And we need to keep that in mind when we look at these. At some point in time, we look at the revenue area to see how much revenue these departments bring in. So just a reminder. Pool and gym, this is of course the Beecher Pool. $86,250. Parks Department, this is the department that literally takes care of all the lawns in town, the baseball fields, the soccer fields, playgrounds, etc. This is Adam Parsons' department, right? Okay. $255,061. Woodbridge Outdoor Pool, this of course is the country club pool, $98,840. Thomas Darling House, $7,448. Library, $835,159. Conservation Commission, $900. Economic Development Commission, $3,800.
Excuse me.
Yes.
William Cofrancis, 37 Country Club, actually a graduate of Center School, Beecher School, and Amity. My wife and I have been in Guilford, Connecticut for the last 20 years, and we've been back here for 2 months. While everybody's talking about all these things, I don't want to say I find it comical, but I lived in a town that had quite a bit of growth, quite a bit of population, and was very aggressive in terms of economic development. So can you explain to me what your definition of economic development is? Because if you're saying to me that your budget is $3,800, is that what it is?
Yes.
That's a farce. It's no wonder why the taxes are high here. It's no wonder why you can't get, I guess you walk, sand or stone or gravel on your path. What are we doing in that area? Because that area is so low. That should be quadrupled in terms of economic development. It's a fabulous town. We're very happy to be back here, and I think you have so much potential. And that number should be 10 times the amount if you want economic development.
I don't know about 10 times.
At least 5.
Okay. One of my initiatives this year was to spend a small amount of money in this year's budget, about $5,000 to hire the Connecticut Economic Resource Council, CERC, which I mentioned in my opening remarks. And they're going to look at all of they're going to help the Economic Development Commission look at all of the various departments in town, look at our grand list. It's a fiscal health analysis, I believe it's called. In next year's budget, under one of the line items in the Selectmen's budget, we've budgeted another $10,000 to help the Economic Development Commission at this point. That's what we felt was a number to start.
I'm not being critical, Mayor.
It's okay.
It's fantastic. I think we should spend more money in that area. Because our town, the town that I grew up in 62, has so much potential, and we wouldn't have left a waterfront property to move back here if we didn't believe in it. So I think there's so much potential. We don't want to go to Westport. We don't want to go to Fairfield. We don't want to go to other places. We want to live here. So I think that's where your dollars should be spent, and I would definitely support that. And I think everybody in here would if they want to keep their taxes at bay and under control. That's what you do. Money makes money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commission, $54,520. Employee benefits, $4,378,430. Just one point here, this is for all town employees. The Woodbridge Board of Education has their benefits within their budget. Debt service, which Tony mentioned in his presentation. This is all the interest and principal we pay on all the debt. $2,561,409. Woodbridge Board of Education, $14,672,285. The Amity Regional Board of Education, $14,712,485. And again, for those of you who don't know it, they have their own separate budget presentations, hearings, etc. And we vote on Amity in a referendum, so that's a separate, well, it's in our budget, of course, it's a separate vote, etc. And finally, capital and non-recurring, which is, again, all our capital projects, $1,615,579.
Now is the time to speak about capital projects. Under recreation, there's $20,000 for the skating rink. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware. I mentioned this at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and I have confirmed that the current skating rink was never permitted by inland wetlands. I really think the town, before it replaces something that wasn't permitted, should be thinking about where is the appropriate place to put it in light of our inland wetlands regulations, which are imposed by all of us as residents and should also be followed by the town itself. Thank you.
I'm sure there's going to be
Eric, anyone know when the skating ring opened? Anyone know when we opened that?
It was under Roger Harrison it was built.
Okay. Guess maybe we might have squatters' rights. Okay, who knows? Last year we were looking at the skating rink. We were going to open it, and each year we've been putting a Band-Aid on. And John Adamovich did have an estimate to have it patched and filled and asphalted, which is the wrong application. Okay, because every couple of years you're going to have to redo it because asphalt is just not the material used for a skating rink. It just isn't. Okay? And so because of that, we weren't open this year, and we decided not to waste that money and to put in the $20,000 for a concrete on the same surface area that we currently are in. So that way it would last a much longer time because concrete is going to last much longer. Plus, because of it being the shading rather than black, it's white or beige or whatever, you have less reflection, and actually the ice will stay colder and the ice longer. Believe me, we got a lot of phone calls this year about the skating rink not being open. I do recognize that some people have a little bit of a different thought process for the Fitzgerald property. I know when it was purchased for municipal purposes. I can think of a number of reasons why that potentially was done. And we don't have to go too far in the state of Connecticut to think about reasons why alternate properties for schools and that type of thing had to be considered because of issues. It's good that we have an alternate property for whatever happens to be. I know at this point in time that property happens to be considered what I would consider sacred cow property at this point in terms of cornfield. And it's a great resource for us, but we can't forget the reason that the property was originally purchased. So let's throw that out there.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, before I say goodbye, the next important meeting is the town meeting, which is May 21st, 4 weeks from today, Monday, yeah. And that's when we will talk about the budget and votes can be taken at that point. So I thank you all for coming and look forward to seeing you at the town meeting. Thank you.